welcome to the Real Estate Marketing Podcast. My name is Jerome Lewis. I'm your host for today. Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast where we talk real estate, marketing, business, and leadership. We talk these things for real estate agents, real estate investors, and real estate entrepreneurs. The Real Estate Marketing Podcast is a podcast with two purposes. Purpose number one, to educate and inform our audience and listeners. Purpose number two, John, to highlight you, your business, your service, or your product in a way that provides value to you, including market exposure, content creation. With that, we have a very special guest, John Donnelly. John serves as the Executive Director of Sales at Service First Mortgage, a company dedicated to community enrichment and financial empowerment. Passionate about leadership development, John focuses on fostering growth and achievement through speed, service, and synergy. He believes success stems from strong leadership, a growth mindset, and partnering with organizations that deliver excellence. Committed to making an impact, John strives to be an influential leader in both the professional and personal lives of his team. John, I'm excited that you're here. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jerome. I'm pumped to be here. It's going to be great.
Absolutely. I'm excited. So, John, what I would like to do is I want to get us started. I like for our guests to tell a story about how they got to where they got to today. So now you're working with Service First Mortgage. I want you to take us on a journey on how you got there in your own words.
Yeah, that's great. I started in the mortgage industry in 1997. So if that kind of dates me a little bit, I've seen a few things. I started in a call center, started being a loan originator, and I really kind of learned the ropes. And then a couple of years into that, I'm like, I want to be a real loan officer that works with, purchase business and realtors and referral partners and build my own book of business. So I did that for years. I built my own business. I built a team, and that started turning into a branch that grew into multiple locations. And at one point I was so busy, I was like, I got to pick, am I going to go down to coaching and recruiting and leadership and building, or am I going to keep doing my personal production? I was having a hard time doing it all. And so I made that decision to continue to be a leader and recruit and build. And that's what I find myself doing today is I run an organization I've been at for 16 years. I love my company, love the leaders I work with. And, my role every day is to coach up my team and find new people that want to be part of something great. So that's kind of what I do every day.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So reading your bio, I'm like, it's actually a lot that we can pull from this. One of the things that really jumped out to me, especially for you as a mortgage person, is financial empowerment. I think sometimes we purchase houses, mortgages, we get involved in real estate, and we don't have that idea or that intent. Like financial empowerment, that really jumped out to me. So I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Yeah, financial empowerment. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Financial empowerment for me is a couple things. One, I want to lead by example in my own life, and that means owning a house, investing in real estate, learning how to do things my own, and then taking my knowledge into my kids and helping them see the future, and then and get them in a position, and then carrying over that to my customers. I think leading by example in your own life experience helps you relate to your customers and your potential buyers and investors. And so I'm passionate about teaching people how to budget, teaching people how to own real estate, how to take advantage of investing in real estate and using it as tax, benefits, stuff like that. So those are things I've done. One of the terms I use that's kind of in line with that is meaningful lending. And that's something in our company that we talk about. What is meaningful lending? What I found is it's kind of different to a lot of people, but meaningful lending to me means that, I'm helping somebody understand what homeownership is about. We're understanding the real expenses is not just qualifying. There's a lot of things that go into buying a house. If you go for broke to get in a house, you still may not be able to afford blinds, and you may feel like you live in a fishbowl, and you've got to really understand what homeownership is about. And so educating people through classes, we've done a lot of first-time homebuyer seminars. We've taught our realtor partners how to, really understand the expense of owning a house. And that's what it is to me. So I kind of think of meaningful lending to me. And then, the ultimate excitement or gratification in my business is when you get that home buyer that comes back and is like, I didn't even think I could own a home, and here I am having my home, buying my house. So those are the things I've seen that have really meant a lot to me over time. Now I'm trying to lead others into develop a leader who develops a leader, and kind of pass that torch down from the things I've learned over the years.
Well, that's one thing that's really standing out for me with you, and I want to go into that. But something you made me think about before we go into the leadership is you mentioned meaningful lending. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because I pay attention to some, but not a lot, right? Like mortgage is not my profession, but I did see a stat recently on the amount of foreclosures, how it's going up. Have you heard that stat? The foreclosure are gone up
Yeah.
recently, the highest point lately. So when you say meaningful, it makes me think about those people and think about ways they can be lended to meaningfully. And I just want to hear your perspective on that before we talk about the leadership stuff.
Yeah, we could get a little in the mortgage here. So um, I've heard the same stats. There's about 300,000 homeowners that have been in their house since the pandemic, and they've been in kind of a forbearance situation where they've had a payment worked out that hopefully they can afford, and we're trying to keep them in these houses, but 75% of those people aren't able to make those payments. And so it feels like that, with recent changes in politics, they're going to make those people, get out of those houses that they've kind of been in those houses for a while. So there's a potential of maybe 300,000 foreclosures hitting the market in a way. Those people still have the option to sell, and there's other things they can do. They don't necessarily mean they're going into foreclosure. So I've kind of been reading on that. And then, the other thing that I see, which is really interesting, is I hear car payments delinquency is at the highest it's ever been, ever. Even before, worse than the meltdown and all, and the Great Recession in 08 and 09. And I believe it. What I'm seeing in our applications is a lot of times people aren't able to get qualified because their cars payments are too high, and 1,200–1,500 car payments are making people not be able to qualify to purchase a house. And it's been going on for a while now. So there's definitely some challenges out there, and home affordability is, a big conversation topic right now. And I think, obviously insurance rates have gone up, but car payments have really gone up. We're starting to see delinquencies there as well. So, there's opportunity out there for people to buy. There's inventory available, but also, some people may be in an unfortunate situation where they may not be able to stay in their house right now. So there's a lot of change, a lot of shift going on in the market right now.
Thank you for sharing that. So I know I was going to talk about leadership, so I'm going to tie these two together. What I'm thinking about now is I'm thinking about, like, as professionals, right? As real estate investors, agents, mortgage people, what can we do to help people in these situations? And I want to be very clear for our audience. Sometimes people think that selling might not be the best choice for a seller, but sometimes it could be. It depends on every individual situation. So I want to hear from you. This is for me, so I can learn, as well as the audience. Like, what's a great way, right? We can go to Google and type in what's going on with mortgages and stuff like that, but typically we get overwhelmed. So I want to hear from you, like a direct mortgage professional. What's a great way to keep up with information like that, in case I wanted to specialize in helping people with mortgage problems, forbearance, anything like that? What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, the first thing is I think about is, you know, taking all the information you can,
Mhm.
but qualify that information. There's a lot of clickbait out there that makes you, it kind of scares you, right? And so if you're reading a headline on your social media feed, it doesn't mean it's accurate. But it may think it's accurate. It may feel like it's accurate, and it may be that there's other posts or other places on the web or wherever you're getting your news that supports that, but it doesn't always mean it's true. And so we all have superpowers, right? As a leader and a person. Um, I have been told recently, one of the things that I'm really good at is taking in everybody's perspective, but then making my own decision on what the truth is as I see it. And so I'm kind of thinking about the way you asked that question based on what's going on right now and all the news that's coming. I think you have to, it depends on your situation. If you're unsure of something that's going on with your mortgage, don't take anybody's advice except for the servicer. And you got to make that phone call and talk to that servicer. If you're not sure about something that's going on, if you don't understand a mortgage note that's being sold, or if you're not sure about, there's a government program that you may qualify for, call and talk to the people yourself and get these answers. Call the loan officer that helped you buy your house, because they have a vested interest in continuing to help you and they want to help you. I think that's great. Even your realtor that helped you. Sometimes in our industry, they don't always remember us, right? We try to. We do our best to stay in front of our customers that we've helped buy houses. But go back to those guys. They want to help you. And I know for me, if somebody called me and said, I have a situation or I want to know what's going on, I feel honored to help them. It doesn't put me out. I'd be like, yeah, here's what I'm seeing in the market, or here's the advice I would give you, or if you're having trouble with this payment, here's some options I know of, and here's the people that you should call. And so be careful of the media, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying.
I appreciate you sharing that. So I want to get more into like some of the leadership things that we talked about that we read in your bio. One thing that's really jumping out to me is you got 3 S's in there. I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but you mentioned it said you focus on fostering growth and achievement through speed, service, and synergy.
Yep.
Can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yeah, great. We kind of looked at our overall approach to the mortgage industry and came up with those: speed, service, and synergy. We call it the power of S3 inside our company. And so it is by design, on purpose. Speed is important to us because if we can get things done quick, there's comfort to everybody involved in a transaction. So the quicker we can get a loan approved, the quicker we can get docs out, the quicker that we make things happen, everybody feels comfortable, and that pressure of the mortgage is released or gone away. There's enough other pressures going on. We want to try to make that feel comfortable. Synergy for us means that we all have to work together. Our internal systems are built in a way that we can do multiple things at one time. We can actually review an appraisal and prepare closing disclosures at the same time, which not every company does that. A lot of them are very assembly line approach type of a thing. You can do one, you do the next, you do the next. And so we've built a system to go fast because we're trying to, release the pressure of the transaction. And then obviously synergy is we all have to work together. And it kind of talks to the synergy is, if the synergy of our partners, the synergy of our buyer, the synergy of the sellers, the synergy of our own team working together, we're going to get there fast, and it's going to be a great transaction. So that's just kind of the idea of where our thought process is and how we're approaching the mortgage transaction itself.
Thank you. So next, I want to talk about. I want to stay around the theme of teams, but this podcast serves real estate agents, real estate investors, real estate entrepreneurs, and a lot of us we start out as a one-man band. One of our most important hires is assistant. And before we came in this room today live, you mentioned that you had some experience with helping people find assistants and build teams. So we would love to hear your perspective on that, starting with these.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things I did is I built my own personal production team, and then I used that team to recruit others too. And so some of this is kind of just my approach and how I did things. But the benefit I have in my role is I get to see some really large teams and how they've built their teams and really be key in orchestrating that structure. So here's kind of the beginning. The first thing is, this is for a loan officer, for a realtor, for whoever. The first hire you make is probably a mental adjustment that you have to make. Is you got to get clear on what you're going to have them do. So if you're going to hire an assistant, you've got to write down exactly what they're going to do, and you've got to get clear on what you're going to turn to. And what I mean is, it's real comfortable for you to do some of that admin work because you feel productive. because you've been doing that because you haven't had an assistant. And then if you don't let it go and let your assistant do those things and go turn to marketing, then you've just become your assistant's assistant, and you're actually doing their work for them. And so I see sometimes people, when they make that first hire, have a hard time getting clear on what they turn to. And when I say turn to, that means you probably want to grow your business, so you want to start marketing more. Well, if you don't have a plan on how you're going to market, then what you do is you fall back into the things you used to do, which is probably those admin roles, because it feels good and you feel productive. And so that's the first thing I notice when building teams, is get super clear on what you're going to do to grow your business. The next hire, when you hire your second assistant, that's generally the hardest one I've found. Hiring the second assistant means you become a manager of people. One person, it's easy. It's one-on-one. You can call and talk. But when you've got two people, now you have to have a little bit more structure. You really got to dial in, a team playbook. I'm big on writing everything down and putting together a process flow and just documenting it all. And you don't need to have some expensive book that you buy or a plan. Just make your own playbook and write it all down and just live by that. It's a living document that's going to grow and change and evolve over time. But what I see is you kind of have that same person in that admin role, and then you're going to have somebody that helps you with sales all of a sudden. So you're going to have like a front end assistant and a back end assistant. And with that, the clarity in those roles, again, it becomes really important, because the two of them are going to compete to do the same work sometimes, kind of like you did when you had your first assistant. And so the simple thing to do is get in a room with a whiteboard and write down, like, lead comes in, however it happens, and write every single step of your entire process, and then put the name of those people on your team next to those steps. And then that's the beginning of your process and your team playbook. You can build job descriptions on that, marketing touch points, all those kind of things later. But that's what happens. And then some of the teams we have 7-8 people on them now. And so once you get past that second, you got those that first and second hire, there's a front end and back end. Sorry, my voice is kind of cracking. And then you go to what I call, you expand to a 2-lane highway. What that means is you're trying to expand your capacity out to where you can handle more volume. If you're leading the team and you have a front end and a back end assistant, you're still an assembly line. There's only so much volume you guys can handle as a team that way. But if you have two, I call them in mortgage team LOs. And so those are people that are taking applications and converting leads, and they're being sales professionals on the front end. And then they might have assistants behind them. But if you have two people that are doing that, each one, let's just say, has capacity to close 15 transactions a month. Well, if each one of them can do 15, now your capacity is 30. When you have a front end and back end assistant, you really only have the capacity of 15 total, maybe 20. And so, scaling your team to a 2-lane, a 3-lane, a 4-lane highway, and then getting support behind that is how you grow a team to a mega team. In our industry in mortgage, the Scotsman Guide is a publication that ranks the top 2,000 originators. And we had one of them in our company just made in the top 50, another one in the top 300. And so I get to see in their teams and how they're structured, and they're structured exactly like this. They build capacity and they build this large pipeline. And the person leading that team is out trying to make the phone ring and get the leads in every day, shaking hands and kissing babies, and they're not in the production anymore. They're out there trying to get those leads coming in. So that's how I see kind of the growth or evolution of teams, I lost the sound again. I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you. So,
oh, there you go.
Okay, great. So based on everything that you just said, I was trying to find a way to formulate some question, but I couldn't really come up with a question. However, I've come up with a quote, which I find very relevant based on what you said. So I'm saying leadership is not just hiring. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's a great one. Leadership is not just hiring. It's leading by example. It's doing the right thing, even though it's really hard. Um, it's showing up every day with the right attitude. It's working when you don't want to work. There's a lot of things that go into leadership, but that's great. It's not just hiring the right people. Hiring the right people is just a small component of it, I think. So
Thank you for sharing
those
that.
are my quick thoughts. I think one thing I'd like to add, if you are building a team and you're looking for advice or a mindset, or how do you go about building this team, read the book, The E-Myth Revisited. It's the perfect book on building a team. It helps you understand how you can go from, an example is if you are a pie maker, how do you go from making the pies to owning the business and running, putting together the system, and then actually owning the business and not being the person making the pies anymore, but still delivering a really solid product. So the E-Myth Revisited is the book to reference on that.
Thank you for sharing that, because we do, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, sometimes we become one man, one woman, just one person, and our business is us. So that leads
Yeah.
me to think about some of what we talked about before we entered this room. You're able to do some cool stuff probably because of the teams that you built. And you mentioned you have like a personal story you want to tell us about. I want to let you tell.
Yeah.
So tell.
Yeah, no, I know where you're
Yeah.
going with this. It's kind of fun. I believe in leadership. Self-leadership precedes team leadership. And so I'm always working on myself. I'm reading books. I'm just trying to lead by example, not just for my team at work, but for my family. And I recently was given a book called The 12-Hour Walk last April. And this book challenges you to walk out your front door and take a 12-hour walk. No music, no people with you. Don't take your dog, and just really think and spend time with your thoughts. It's kind of like a meditation. And so in that, I decided I would just do that walk. So I walked out my front door last April, and I went 30 miles in a 12-hour walk, which is pretty wild. I've never done that before. And I just spent time with myself. I wrote 17 pages of notes, and it was transformational for me because I came up with some things I want to do that are pretty exciting. I challenged myself. I'm turning 50. I said, hey, I'm going to be 50. What can I do that's epic? And I had this thought in my brain for 15 years, a whole nother story, but I wanted to hike Kilimanjaro. I'm like, why not do it now? I'm turning 50. This is the time. And so that led me down a journey of improving my health and dialing in my morning routine and going to the gym more. And really what's happening is the vision of hiking Kilimanjaro is so compelling to me. It's like I know exactly what my end goal is. And so it's just driving me to be better every day. And I think it's going to be great when it's done, because I hope I make it to the top of that mountain. But I hope the story completes itself, because what I found is when you're visioning, man, you don't even think about things, you just run at it, and it's awesome, and you're energized, and that's and the people I keep telling about this story, it seems to resonate with, like, hey, that's really cool. Maybe I want to do a 20 for me. I don't have many people going for it is big in our businesses right now. I would challenge you: is your vision compelling enough that you wake up every day and you're so excited? I can't wait to climb up that mountain. Are you feeling your business too? And so that's just something I'm personally going through that's exciting to me that I'm talking about.
Thank you. Thank you. What I would like to hear from you is leadership. We have a theme of leadership we've been discussing today. I want to hear an unusual leadership story that involves you for our audience. Could you share something like that with us?
Around leadership?
Yes, sir. Okay, we're losing a little bit of connection. We want to hear from you, like an
Yeah.
unusual story around leadership, something that's non-conventional, strange, or even if you don't have anything, we just want to hear from you on leadership.
On leadership.
Mhm.
Okay. I know this is strange, but I got a story. One of the things that I thought about is what kind of leader am I trying to be when I was on this walk? And I decided to pick 10 people that I admire in leadership or professionals and try to model my behavior after those people. And so I picked people like John Maxwell, Kobe Bryant, Jesse Itzler, just Tony Robbins, people that have been influential in my life. And I kind of wrote down in my notes, like, what about them draws me to them? Why do I want to be like them? And, what traits do they represent that I could take from them and integrate into my life? And so what I came up with is this idea of this little board of directors that I'm trying to model myself after. And the one theme that I've kind of overarching theme of all this was I'm trying to be known, I guess, if you will, or represent myself as being a class act. That's kind of my mantra. And so I've been using this filter, and there's certain times where I'll say, am I being a class act? And in my words, in my way, and based on my board of directors giving me feedback, would this be the right way to handle myself, in a situation? Am I showing up the right way? Am I responding the right way? Are my emails the right way? Should I follow up with somebody a certain way? And I think the ultimate, validation for me is when someday, if somebody describes me as being a class act, and I figured it out. I think that's the ultimate way. Um, but it's just something I'm not perfect at, that I'm striving for, and I'm modeling myself after people that I think represent, you know, the core values that I want to represent.
Well, what's funny is I was going to tell you that the way you carry yourself to me, I think you are you're headed in that direction of class act. The way you carry yourself, our conversations, the thing we talked about before we did the interview, and what you talked about during the interview. So I don't know if I'm the person to say that a person is a class act, but you are well on your way. I can definitely say that you're well on your way if you're not there already, for sure.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that. I think that I see it in you. I see it in you, and I see the way that you put together your show and the way you're prepared and the way you present yourself. And so, you know, we're always a work in progress, and we're all trying to get better. And if you get clear on where you're trying to go, you're just going to get better. You're going to get there. I'll never probably get there, but I'm always going to keep working to get better. So that's my mindset toward my personal growth. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. We would love to have you back. John, if there was one thing that a person could do for you to bring you immediate value, what would it be? So here's a great example that I like to use. I'm like, okay, you could go like one of my social media posts. You could purchase a copy of my book. You could rate the podcast. What's one thing someone can do for you or your business that would give you immediate value?
Yeah, I think go to my LinkedIn, thejohndonnelly.com, shoot me a message, check me out, see what I'm doing in the mortgage industry, have a conversation with me. That's what I would say would be the one thing is, I love the people I work with. And I know that when I have conversations with other people in the industry, I either make a friend or sometimes they come work with me. You just never know. And the more conversations we can have and the more we can help each other, the better we all end up. I say I'm a servant leader, which simply means I want more for you than I want from you. And so I just want to have a conversation, whether it's a message or a phone call. That's what I would like.
Excellent. Thank you. The next question is very similar, but this time it's about long-term value. So a great example for me might be, hey, send me a client that we'll build a long-term relationship with. What's a way someone can add long-term value to you or your business?
Yeah, I think if you know a mortgage professional that would be a great fit for an organization like ours that would want some leadership like that I offer, I'd like an introduction. I think that's what I would be looking for.
Excellent. Thank you. I will keep that in mind. I asked that so I can find out ways to serve my guests as well. So, John, if you could close us out with one word, no explanation, what word would that be?
Elevate. I'm going with elevate right now.
Elevate. John, this has been excellent. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being a class act on our show. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jerome. It's been awesome talking to you. Appreciate
Excellent.
everything.